One of the world's most tech-friendly countries just made a shocking move that's about to reshape how educators everywhere think about AI in the classroom. Norway, a country that embraces technology better than almost any place on Earth, just passed one of the world's broadest restrictions on artificial intelligence use in elementary schools. We're not talking about banning one tool or limiting one type of AI. This is a sweeping decision that affects how teachers can use AI for grading, lesson planning, student assessment, even creating educational content. And here's what makes it even more surprising. This didn't come from paranoid tech skeptics. It came from education experts, child psychologists, and government officials who took a long, hard look at what AI is doing to young minds. The timing matters too. While Silicon Valley is still celebrating AI as the solution to every classroom problem, Norway stepped back and asked the question nobody else wanted to ask. What if we are moving too fast? What if there are real costs to letting AI saturate elementary school life that we haven't measured yet? This decision is going to ripple far beyond Scandinavia. It's already sparking conversations in other European countries, and honestly, it might be the wake-up call that education systems everywhere needed. Let's dig into what Norway actually decided, why they made this call, and what it means for the global future of AI in schools. To understand why Norway did this, you've got to understand what's been happening in Scandinavian schools over the last couple of years. AI tools, particularly large language models like ChatGPT, exploded into classrooms starting in 2023. Teachers found them genuinely useful. You could use AI to draft a lesson plan in 10 minutes instead of an hour. You could generate personalized practice problems for students who needed extra help. You could automate the tedious parts of grading so you had more time to actually teach. By 2025, surveys showed that roughly 60% of Norwegian elementary teachers were using AI tools in their daily work. It seemed like a win-win. But here's where the concerns started building. Child psychologists and education researchers began noticing patterns they didn't like. They saw students becoming less engaged in deep reading because AI summaries were faster. They noticed that when every answer could be instantly generated, kids stopped developing their own problem-solving muscles. There were also privacy concerns. Some AI tools were collecting data on elementary-age children without proper consent frameworks. Norway's government decided to look at the research, listen to the experts, and ask themselves a hard question. Are we letting convenience override what we actually know about how children learn? That question led them to take action nobody expected. So what exactly did Norway ban? It's not as simple as no AI in schools. The restrictions are targeted and specific. Elementary schools, that's kids from roughly ages 6 to 12, are banned from using AI for student assessment and evaluation. Teachers can't use AI to grade homework. They can't use it to evaluate how well a student understands a concept. They can't use AI-generated test questions because there's concern about bias in the questions themselves. They're also restricted from using AI for personalized learning recommendations, systems that supposedly adapt to each child's pace and learning style. Why? Because Norway's experts looked at the research and found that these systems are essentially black boxes. You can't explain to a parent why the AI decided their 7-year-old needed a different curriculum path. The stakes are too high for invisibility. There's also a ban on using AI to create original educational content specifically for elementary students. Lesson plans, textbooks, study guides, unless a human educator critically reviews and signs off on every single piece. And here's a big one. Schools can't use AI systems that collect data on children's learning patterns, behavior, or engagement. Norway's education ministry took one look at the data harvesting that was happening and said absolutely not. This isn't a complete ban on AI. Teachers can still use it. The controls are just really tight. Let me paint a picture of what this actually looks like in a Norwegian classroom starting next semester. Imagine a 4th grade teacher named Sarah. Right now, she uses an AI tool called Gradeit that reads through student essays, finds grammatical errors, checks for plagiarism, and even rates the overall quality on a scale from 1 to 5. It saves her 3 hours a week. Starting in the fall, she can't use Gradeit anymore. She's got to go back to reading essays manually, spending those 3 hours? Can she still ask ChatGPT to brainstorm lesson ideas? Yes. Can she ask it to draft a template for a reading comprehension worksheet? Actually, yes, as long as she reviews it carefully and doesn't just copy-paste it straight to students. But she can't let the AI evaluate her students' work. She also can't use a system that tracks which students fall behind and recommends targeted exercises for each kid. That data collection is off-limits. Now think about the frustration. Teachers in other countries are using AI tools to give every kid a customized learning path. Norwegian teachers can't do that. Why? Because the moment you track data to personalize, you're essentially building profiles on children. And once you have those profiles, you can't unsee them. There's also the question of who owns that data and what it's used for later. Is it sold, shared with government, used to train future AI? Norway decided those questions are too important to leave unanswered. Norway isn't alone in getting nervous about AI in schools, but they are definitely the most aggressive so far. The European Union is building an AI Act that's going to set guardrails, but it's not a categorical ban on specific tools. It's more of a these tools need to meet these safety standards framework. The European Union's approach is regulate the risk, not ban the tool. Meanwhile, the United States is doing basically nothing at the federal level. Some American states are passing vague laws that tell schools to be transparent about AI use, which is nice in principle, but doesn't actually stop anything. Many American schools continue rolling out AI-powered tutoring, grading, and learning management systems without much pushback. China takes a completely different approach. They're integrating AI heavily into schools as a way to standardize and centralize education. They see it as a tool for better state-level control and consistency. But here's what makes Norway unusual. They are saying we are wealthy, we have the resources to do education the slow, thoughtful way, and we are choosing to do that. They're not worried about competing with other school systems. They're focused on what they think is actually best for children's cognitive development. It's less about global competitiveness and more about local values, which is a pretty bold stance in the age of AI arms races. So why should anyone outside Norway care? Well, there are actually 3 big implications that ripple globally. First, big tech is watching this closely. These companies spent years telling us that AI would solve education's biggest problems. Now one of their richest, most tech-friendly markets is saying we don't think so. If Norway can make this work without losing educational quality, other countries might follow. And that matters for companies' stock prices and revenue. Second implication, this is about power and who controls how children develop. When an AI system evaluates your kid, decides which subjects they are naturally good at, and recommends a customized learning path, you're handing the company that built that system an enormous amount of influence over your child's future. Norway's saying, we don't want that influence in private hands. The third piece is actually philosophical. AI needs training data, and some of the most valuable training data comes from education systems. If you track which students struggle with math, how they learn, what mistakes they make, that data is gold for building better AI. But Norway's basically saying we are not going to be the data mine for your AI training. That sets a precedent. Once one country does it, others might follow. And Silicon Valley's having to reckon with the idea that not every country wants to trade their children's cognitive development for efficiency gains. Now, if you're a teacher or a parent watching this, you might be wondering, what do I actually do with this information? Here's what matters. If you're working in Norway, these rules are coming. Start documenting which AI tools you currently use for what purpose. Grading, lesson planning, student feedback. Figure out which ones you can keep. Ideally anything that just helps you brainstorm or draft content that you then manually review, and which ones need to be phased out by the restrictions implementation date. For parents, this is worth a conversation. Ask your school or your child's teacher, what AI tools are being used in your classroom right now? How are they being used? If teachers can't or won't tell you, that's actually a red flag. You have the right to know if AI is evaluating your kid or collecting data on them. The broader move, stay informed about what your government is doing. Education policy moves slowly. You've got time to engage before these regulations reach your country. And if you believe in the precautionary principle, the idea that we should be careful with technologies affecting children, Norway's approach might be one worth advocating for. in your own context. The era of move fast and break things doesn't work when the things are children's foundational learning years. This decision suggests there's another way. So here's what Norway's decision means for the world. This isn't just about one policy in one country. It's a signal that the conversation around AI is shifting. For years, the conversation was how do we deploy AI faster? Now, in at least one place, it's how do we protect children from premature AI integration? That's a meaningful pivot. For tech companies, it's a wake-up call. You can't assume every government will prioritize efficiency over precaution. For other governments and schools, it's proof that you have options. You're not locked into the race to automate everything. What's happening in Norway right now is going to influence how the rest of the world thinks about these questions for the next decade. And maybe, just maybe, it's the beginning of a more thoughtful approach to how AI intersects with human development at the most crucial stage, childhood. The story isn't over. Other countries are already watching. And there's going to be a real tension between those that race to integrate AI and those that choose to slow down and think. We'll be following this closely as it unfolds. Make sure you're following for daily updates on how AI is reshaping our world, because these stories matter and they're moving faster than most people realize.